I'm considered a baby boomer. I was born after the Second World War to farm folks who lived near the hamlet of Pleasantdale in Saskatchewan. Dad had bought the land from money he made by trapping furs. They were frugal people, having lived through a depression and war. I was the youngest, had no brothers, only 2 sisters. I had a great childhood and pretty much had the run of the place. At 8 years old, I was designated chores. I had to milk cows, gather eggs, feed the pigs and calves and other birds. In the summer, I learned to drive the tractor and started haying and cultivating. Mom always had a big garden, and we were to help in it. Seed in the spring, hoe in the summer, and harvest the potatoes in the fall, never ending when you're a kid. We helped Mom pick raspberries, strawberries, saskatoons, and cranberries, and then had to deal with them. In the fall, Mom would butcher chickens and turkeys on the weekend, and we were assigned so many chickens to pluck and gut, a horrible smell and mess. Dad only had 4 quarters of land, so income was supplemented by selling cream and eggs. We had lots of food to eat with our farm produce, and in the fall, Dad would hunt wild game, come home with a deer or moose. For many years, until we got an oil stove, our only source of heat was a wood stove. We were in an area of lots of trees, and I would go with Dad to cut down trees or pick up deadfall, and we would bring it home on the sleigh pulled by our horses, Nipper and Pepper. I was often cold when I got home, and Mom would let me put my feet on the oven door to warm up. Later, the men would have a wood-cutting bee and saw up the logs for winter use. Every second or third Saturday, we went to town for supplies, and sometimes we would go to the drive-in theater. One show I remember was Lassie, and after it was over, my sisters and I cried and cried because we loved dogs. As a child, we never went on holidays. My parents just worked and worked. In July, Mom would take us to the Melfort Fair, quite an experience for a kid off the farm. We had so much fun. First time I tasted cotton candy, and I didn't like it then, and I still don't. I took all my schooling, grade 1 to 12, in Pleasantdale. I rode the school bus every day. I never went to a country school. It closed the year I was starting school when I was 6. I remember going to concerts and dancers as a child. It was such a community in those days. We never had television until I was 10, and then only got one snowy channel. We all, and some of the neighbors, would watch Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday night on the CBC. Especially in the winter, we played board games, cards, and read. Generally, our weekends, we would get company to visit and have a meal with us. My grandparents lived on the next farm, and I saw them a lot. Grandpa was a little crusty and older, but Grandma was a wonderful person. She always had a treat for us when we stopped in. She saved me the Eaton's catalogs so that I could cut them up and make paper dolls. My cousin lived 2 miles away, and my good friend a half a mile. We would walk back and forth after chores and think nothing of it. No fear of wild animals, darkness, or strange people. Sometimes in the winter when the snow was deep, Dad hitched up the horses to the sleigh and we went visiting. It was so toasty under the blankets, and we would see the northern lights and play a game with my sisters trying to guess the star constellations. My mother was Italian and my father English. We spent Christmas with my aunt and uncle who lived 9 miles away. They had a daughter my age. Sometimes we went by car, sometimes by sleigh, depending on the weather. It was such a fun time with all the games, cousins visiting and eating. The uncles and aunts and family came back on New Year's Day. We cooked an Italian pasta called gnocchi, or agnolotti, as the main meal with turkey. It was homemade the day before. It is still a favorite of mine today. I belonged to the 4-H program for 10 years, where I learned to cook and sew. When I was 14, I was offered a 4-H exchange trip to Iowa. I went there for 5 days one year, and the host family's daughter came back the next year. It was an hour south of Des Moines in a rural community. What an experience for a farm girl, the first time on a trip out of the country. It was so hot and humid, and they ate their watermelon with salt on it. 4-H also took me to Camp Rainer on Diefenbaker Lake, the Power Dam at Tobin Lake, Pioneer in Saskatoon, and the historic site of Batoche, a first for me to all of them. I left the farm when I was 17 and came to Saskatoon to go to post-secondary school. I was glad to be away from the chores, but I missed the farm life. I've been off the farm for 45 years, but recently, my dad, who at 91 still lives on the farm, has given my sisters and myself the land, so it is still a part of my life, and when I go to visit, I think of all the good times and memories. How long was it? Oh, it was just about 5 minutes.